Hello my lovelies! Welcome and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jamie. And today we are going to be doing the end of the year tag for 2024. First, I would like to say that this is kind of going to be hard to say, but I'm going to say it. There is not going to be a book page for this month. And it's not because I didn't grab one. I did grab one. However, I didn't know what they were going to be doing this month, and to be honest, I'm kind of disappointed, and if anything, I get a little angry. So apparently, for our book page for 2024, for December, is just a list of all their favorite books that they did this year. They didn't really, I looked through, they didn't add really anything new in here. It's just a whole bunch of books that we've already seen, we've already talked about, all the Christmas stuff that they wanted to go over, all the Taylor Swift books that they come out this year, just everything that we've already talked about. So, I'm really kind of disappointed. And I know you guys probably are too, because it's your guys' favorite video. So, I can't do it this month. It sucks. So, hopefully for January, we will get started with doing all the new releases again and which ones will actually be coming out instead of just giving us a whole bunch of books that we already know exist. Yeah. So without further ado, we are going to get into our end of the year tag for those of you who don't know, the end of the year tag is where we ask each other a whole bunch of questions about the year, what our favorite books were, our favorite authors were, and there's a whole bunch of different other questions. I got some of these from different YouTubers all over the place. A lot from Larry Reed's. I know she got them from another YouTuber. So we're just going to go through and do a whole bunch of questions, answering about our favorite books of the year, what I would recommend to you guys, and then also the plans for the new year. So, without further ado, let's get to that. Question 1 is the most disappointing book that you have read this year. Believe it or not, My Sisters Under the Rising Sun for me. Granted, this is not her most famous work. The most famous work was Tattooist of Auschwitz, but I was kind of expecting the same hype from this one. Of course, what did I expect? Because I found this at an Ollie's, and there were a whole bunch of other copies there. So it kind of, I had high expectations, but at the same time I was prepared. It was still disappointing because I think it could have been so much better. And if you guys want to see the review I did of that, it is on one of my recent ones. I believe I did this for the month of November. So you guys can look through and see that. But I'd say this is the most disappointing one out of my whole year. The rest of them were kind of just either I expected it or I didn't expect it, and it was just, yeah. Moving on to question number 2. A book that surprised me that I liked. And yeah, I was not expecting this one. I was not expecting this one at all. And it was Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Going into this, I expected this to be to the point where I couldn't read it. However, with everything that's happened in here, I did read the shortened version of this book, and you guys can find that on Audible. They do have an abridged version to where they're not reading like exactly what's in here. It's kind of like a shortened version. I did enjoy that a whole lot more than I think I would have if I read the actual version. But the storyline, I still remember it. I comprehended it very, very well. And I love the story. It was very sad. Don't get me wrong. It was a very sad story. But it surprised me that I enjoyed it as much as I did. Out of all the classics I've read, this one has surprised me the most. Question number 3. You guys probably will like this question. Is my favorite couple of the year. I know a lot of people are expecting me to say Court of Thorns and Roses. But considering that I barely liked the book, that is definitely not one of them, so I'm going to have to disappoint. Believe it or not, my favorite couple for this year is a series not a lot of people talk about. For good reason. It's a very touchy, emotional series, and it is The Program by Suzanne Young. I love Sloane and James's relationship in this. Going into the story, for those of you who don't know, is a very suicidal-based series. Basically, these kids are living in a society where they think that the suicidal teenager has a disease and that it needs to be cured. when in reality they just need some good therapy and some counseling sessions and not be afraid that something is going to happen to them. The main point of the story is that they are all scared because people come back from the program that they're sent to when they feel suicidal. They come back and they are not the same people. They act different. They don't know who any of their friends are. They barely know who their family is. Their mind literally changes, and that is what they're all scared of, is I don't want to change. Well, what happens when you have so much anxiety you can't think and you're tired of being scared? It became an epidemic because of the program. It was a cycle. So these two were subject to it, and just the amount of love that is in this, like, this was not only just teamwork, okay? This is finding each other after a horrific event and moving forward when everyone thought that, you know, they shouldn't get together. I'm trying not to spoil anything because it kind of spoils the book if I go really into their relationship. James was her brother's best friend, and her brother actually committed suicide, so he was pretty much left to try and take care of her. So that's kind of when their relationship started, was when they were hanging out with their brother. They've known each other for years, so it's one of those best friends to lovers type of thing. But their story takes on so much more than that, and I absolutely loved it. I love how much they go through together and how much they, not only in this book, but they also do that in the second book. They go through so much hell together. Very moving, and I absolutely love it. For those of you who have not read this, who can handle that kind of a heavy plot line, because it is heavy, it is like one of my favorite series reads this year. I'm so glad that I started reading it, and I do want to read the rest of them in the upcoming year. Moving on to question number 4. Favorite main characters of the year. So I had 3. I knocked it down to 2. It's one of my favorite books of all time, is The Girl of Fire and Thorns. I read that book 100 times. For Eliza, I love how much growing she does in the series. She starts off living in a palace, being a princess and doing all that and gorging herself because she has, what do you call that? Not an eating disorder, it's stress eating, something along those lines, anxious eating, something like that. Okay, so she gets nervous and she eats, so she's a little bit on the hefty side, but by the end of the story, she has completely changed herself, and I love how much growing and self-respect she earns for herself, going through everything that she does. She is one of my favorite characters, and still is to this day. The second one that I actually really enjoyed, that I started this year, is Mare from Red Queen. So, Mare pretty much takes care of her family through things that she knows she's not proud of, but she does it anyway because she has no choice. And I understand everything that she has to go through, because getting hit with a wrecking ball that she does in the story, it takes a lot of courage to actually get through this, and she does. She just takes it and runs with it. I loved her character. I love how she's a badass. She's a badass. I absolutely loved her. And I look forward to hopefully getting to the end of that series this year, but if I don't, I'm not going to cry over it, because there's many other things that I could be doing. Moving on to question number 5. New favorite author that I have discovered this year. I had quite a few new authors that I did enjoy this year, but my favorite, I think, that surprised me the most, and the ones that I've read multiple of this year, is Stephen King. I started off reading Carrie, because my dad told me it's one of the mildest, you'll like it, and it's very short, so start off with that one. So I started off with Carrie, and then I read Salem's Lot because I liked it so much, and then I had The Shining on loan from my father. He gave me The Shining, so I have that one waiting for me whenever I'm ready. I did not expect to like him as much as I thought I would, but I absolutely liked Carrie. I liked Carrie, but I loved The Salem's Lot. I loved it so much that I went and watched the new adaptation, and I plan on watching the old adaptation to it hopefully very soon. I loved him a lot more than I thought I was going to. I was just skeptical because of things like it and, you know, things like that. Those things scare me. I don't like clowns, and I think that's what was shielding me off from Stephen King. I really love Stephen King this year, and I do want to read more of his books next year. I've got The Shining and Dr. Reed to Sleep coming up after that, and then I have a bunch that I already have lined up. So moving on, we are on question number 6. This is an author that did not work out for me this year. That one was very easy to answer because I was disappointed twice by this author, and it was Jodi Picoult. I did not read this particular book. I read Mercy, and I read Picture Perfect. Reading Mercy and Picture Perfect, I absolutely loved Songs of a Humpback Whale. I absolutely loved them. However, I'm noticing a little bit of a pattern here with her books. They have 2 different timelines, but she's swapping. The first one was understandable because it left you with anticipation, like, what's the ending going to be like? Well, it's done that for Picture Perfect, where we're literally getting the same stories over and over again, and it was very boring. I just ended up skipping to the end, and I did the exact same thing with Mercy. It was hopping back and forth so much I got bored, and I just skipped to the end to figure out what happens because I got tired of waiting around. This, like, doesn't need to be this thick, and it has me worried for the rest of her books. I'm very scared and I'm very skeptical to read the rest of her books, but I'm still going to try. And if I don't like her older ones, I'm going to hop over to her more popular ones and see if they're any better. So she was very disappointing for me this year. I read 2 of them. I DNF'd both. Technically, I did finish them, but I shouldn't have to skip to the end to finish them, if that makes sense. So I read the book, but I didn't read the book. It was complicated. So she was very disappointing for me this year. Question number 7 is the best book adaptation that you have read from your books this year. Believe it or not, I did this on one most recently. So I thought it would be Salem's Lot, but I didn't like the new adaptation, and that was the one I liked. So that was the tie. The other one that I think took the cake on any book that I had this year was Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Just like the frickin' book. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, absolutely loved the book, and I loved the movie just as much because the only thing they did to take anything out to save time was a few of the things that they were doing when she was stuck in the cage waiting for the Hunger Games to start, and, you know, everything in between that up until it starts. That was the only time period where they time crunched to make it shorter to fit all in one movie, which is the same thing that they did with the other Hunger Games. They just got rid of all the middle stuff and left the big things for the middle of the movie. I did really enjoy this. I am so happy that the movie was just like the book. So for those of you who have not read this, it is the prequel to the Hunger Games. It's Coriolanus's, I finally said his name right. It's Coriolanus's view on the 10th annual Hunger Games. So it's a little bit past the first, but it is really, really good. I did enjoy it, and we are getting another adaptation. Oh, I am so excited for this one. So there apparently is another one coming out, and it's supposed to be from Hamich's perspective. I don't know when it's going to come out yet, but I will definitely let you guys know because now that I'm caught up with the Hunger Games, I can actually look forward to reading that one now and getting a hold of it and finishing up the series and keep pace with it. It's one of the few series that I've actually finished and gotten caught up this year, and I'm very proud of myself for that. But that was my favorite movie for the whole year of all the books I've read. Moving on to question number 8. Question number 8 is my favorite covers of the year. So I have 2, and they're both ones that I have read recently. My first one was Alan the Arabian Nights. This one's kind of self-explanatory. And the other one that I really, really liked, that was the main factor of why I got it, was Phantasma. Like, both of these are freaking gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. For Phantasma, I not only love the cover, but I also love the story. This one, it's very suitable for the times. So, I loved both of these. I absolutely love both of these covers. They're beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Okay. Moving on to question number 9. A book I have not stopped thinking about since I read it. That one was a little hard because I do have a few. So Phantasma was definitely one of them. I did really enjoy that story. I did like Wicked. I did read that in anticipation of that new movie this year. I haven't seen it yet, so I couldn't put that on my list of things that were my favorite. But there is one in particular, the only one that I have cried to this year and literally hurt my soul. For those of you who have not read this, if you want to cry, read Second Chance Summer by Morgan Mattinson, because she gives you all the feels on this one in particular. I've read some of her others, but this, I think, has been one of the deepest stories that just, it blew my mind. If I still think about this, if I think about the storyline, I am trying not to right now, I literally fall apart and I cry. So, this is a story about Taylor. She runs from her problems, is the best way to put it. And her family comes up with a problem that she just can't run away from. This is going to be inevitable whether she likes it or not. They decide to have one last big summer together as a family, and Taylor's parents decide to take back their lake house and spend the summer over there. They haven't done that in a couple of years, and Taylor was 100% okay with that because she didn't leave good terms with her previous friends or her ex-boyfriend at the time. The thing about this story is that they're doing this because her father got diagnosed with cancer. And I'm not really going to go into much depth with that, but that is all you need to know. Cancer's not pretty, especially when it's one that can't be solved easily. And anyone who knows that and seen that, this is going to hit you hard. It hit me hard, and I haven't been around anybody in my family who's had cancer to this extent. Like, never. And I've been very fortunate for that, but this had me in tears, and I was absolutely crying. I still remember the story. I remember how much growing that she did while she was on her lake house trip. Just everything about this. She is one of my favorite authors, and she still is to this day, especially after this book. So those of you who have not read this, definitely read it if you want a good cry. Moving on to question number 10, and that is a book you thought you'd love, but you didn't. That was very easy, and that is actually the last book that I read before filming this video, which was Jingle Bell Mingle by Sierra Simone, and I can't remember the other author for the life of me, so you're going to have to forgive me on that. But I've heard a lot of good things about these authors, and Merry Little Meet Cute, and the other one that they wrote, so I thought I'd give it a try, and thinking it would be a good Christmas fluffy romance. I was 100% wrong. For those of you who have read this and have read the other two, I need a little bit of insight, because going into this, I did not like the writing style at all. I thought there was so much weird banter, and I wish I could show you a page in that book, because I showed Nick right after I got done saying hell no, and he even made that kind of face, and I knew that it wasn't just me. Okay, so for those of you who like this, why? I'm not saying that, your opinion is wrong, that you love the book. I just want to understand why you love the book, or if I need to read the other two to understand this one, because I did realize that it was number 3, but I thought that these, from getting the opinions of other people, were not completely interconnected, and that I can read it as a standalone. If that is not right, then please let me know. But just from what I've read, even if I was lost The writing completely threw me, and I was so not into that. That is definitely one that I thought I was gonna like it, and it turned out to be the complete opposite. So, moving on to question number 11. It is the book with the most unique concept. This one took a little bit of digging because I thought that the program had a unique concept, but at the same time it's not like weird. I did come up with one, and this is one that's not really popular anymore. It was popular in the early thousands. Some of you may have not have heard this trilogy before, and it is the Wake trilogy by Lisa McMahon. This story in particular is about a girl who, when she goes to sleep, if there's anyone else asleep in the vicinity, she is in their dreams. Like, she'll pop up in their dreams. And she gets some weird, perverted, crazy stuff, and then one day she comes across one that literally scares the crap out of her. She wants to figure out, like, whose dream was this? It's such a unique concept because I've never heard of someone just popping in and out of dreams like they're dream walking, if that makes sense. But I did enjoy it. It's a part of a trilogy. I've read the book twice. I do have Fade, which is the next book in the series, on my shelf. I don't have the last one yet, but I hope that I can get a hold of it this year and finish the series because it's only 3 books long. So if I can try and finish it this upcoming year, that would be wonderful. But this is one that I think is the most unique out of all the books I've read this year. Question number 12 is a book that I would reread that I have read this year. That one was also very easy. As far as the new books go, I liked them. Very few of them I would read again. Salem's Lot was like a close second. But considering I read this again this year, and I do want to read the rest of the series next year, it's always going to be A Girl of Fire and Thorns. I would 100% reread this again and again and again. For probably as long as I live, because I love this much. I absolutely love this book. It gives me the warm sunshine, desert feeling. And not only that, the description of the foods and the spices and everything just brings me home. It's a comfort read for me. It will always be a book to get me out of a reading slump. And I absolutely love Eliza. I love every character in this. I think that most of the girls in this are badasses. And the situations are very unique enough for me to keep reading this. So I absolutely love it. For those of you who don't know what it's about, it is about a girl, Eliza. She was born, but she was blessed by God, and she literally has like a gemstone in her navel section, like a godstone, that's what they call it. When you're blessed with a godstone, every 100 years, apparently, you have to do an act of service. It could be anything from doing something as simple as, building a church that makes its way into history, or it could be literally changing the course of a war. In Eliza's case, I'm not going to go into because, well, it's kind of the whole point of the story, is she's finding her destiny and, filling in the holes that she wasn't told as a child by other people. So I do love this series. If you guys haven't read it, please read it because it's one of my favorite books of all time. Moving on to question number 13. 13 is actually kind of like a 2-part question because it is saying how well my reading goal was for 2024 and what I want to do for my reading goal of 2025. So for 2024, I actually read 59 out of 55 books that I wanted to read this year. Yay! Yay me! Okay, so I met my goal for this year. I actually surpassed it, which was really, really nice. But because I surpassed it, I do want to up it next year. I want to see if next year I can read 60 books. Because this goal was 55. I know that I can do it, and that is actually reasonable for this year. I want to see if I can do 60 next year. And if I can do that, then we'll keep upping it as the years go on. But I did really good with doing 55 good books this year. A lot of them were good 4 or 5 stars. Very few of them get below a 3. Moving on to question number 14. A book that you wish you would have got to read this year. So out of all the books that I really wanted to read this year that I actually had, I had a few of them that I did want to read. was Fourth Wing. I did want to read Fourth Wing. I wanted to see what all the hype was about, but at the same time, I can afford to wait a little bit because we have the third book coming out in January. And I can wait a little bit longer in order to read them executively over the course of a few months. So I can afford to wait a little bit longer, but I do want to read this book next year. I hope so. Last and not least, question number 15 is, what will you prioritize this upcoming year? So I did have an original plan, and I'm kind of in the process of changing that, actually, because one thing I noticed about the TBR jars and everything like that, it doesn't work well when you have no TBR cart, if that makes sense. Because I have so many books that I've been wanting to read for so long that never get picked, like even close. And I feel like I need to narrow it down between those, and I think that's one of the things that has been hindering me. So in addition to trying to prioritize the reads that I want to read, I do want to prioritize those, the ones I've been looking forward to reading the most, and then I also want to work on the authors that I want to read to zero. There's a few big ones that I know I'm not going to get to this year. It's Daniel Steele, Jodi Picoult, and Ellen Hildebrand. I ain't going to do those in a year unless I read them like non-stop, which ain't going to happen at all. There are some authors that I am very close to finishing that I would like to finish this year. I've got Mad Haig to read. I've got Lucy Foley. She only has a couple more. I've got Alice Feeney. I've got Sherry LaPena. I've got a few of hers I got to read. And there's a whole bunch of other authors that I'm like done with a couple of their books that I want to read all of them this year. Nicola Yoon is another big one. I've only not done 3 of hers, and I want to read them this year. So that is going to be my goal for this upcoming year, is that I don't want to do that anymore. And a little bird told me that hopefully I will be getting a TBR cart this year for Christmas. That would absolutely be wonderful. So we shall see. I am going to be very looking forward to that, and I think that's going to help me finish up what I've started, because I do want to start some books that I have been putting off, and I don't want to read certain ones anymore, if that makes sense. I didn't want to read Sister Sin of the Rising Sun. I kind of didn't want to read a couple of the ones that I chose for my monthly TBR. Battle of Summers and Snakes was a blessing because I've been wanting to read that forever. And certain books, like I do appreciate that I got picked this month. But at the same time, I'm tired of putting up the things that I know that I need to read, if that any of that makes sense. So I hope to change that this year. I do want to read certain things and prioritize certain authors. So hopefully we'll get to that this year. And those were all of our questions that we have for the end of the year tag. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask me, feel free to do so in the comments, and I'll just answer them as I go. If you guys want to do the book tag, like I said, I took just different questions from different YouTubers and combined them all together. Once again, I do apologize for the no book page for this month. I'm just as disappointed as you all are. I hope that we get to do this again next month, early in the month. Cross your fingers. Cross your fingers. Hopefully everything is going well with you guys for the holidays. I do appreciate seeing so many booktubers having fun with their book videos and doing Bookmas. I didn't want to do that this year because I've been in the middle of a slump, and I kind of need the break from reading for a little while, and I've been just reading what I want to read. That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you for joining me. If you guys have, like I said, any other questions about how the year went or any books that you would recommend that I read for the new year, please let me know in the comments. Please remember to like and subscribe. I absolutely love it if you guys would continue to support me in watching my videos and giving me any feedback that you think I should do. I really enjoy doing this video for you guys. I wish you all a happy holiday and a wonderful Christmas. Love your reads, drink your teas, and I'm gonna go read some more. Bye!